Picture this, it's late August in Colorado, the night air cooling down the suburban streets of Aurora. Inside a quiet ordinary house on East Yale Avenue, an 18-year-old girl named Isabella Guzman stands in front of a bathroom mirror. She isn't just fixing her hair, checking her phone, or picking out an outfit for the next day like any normal teenager. Instead, she is staring deeply into her own reflection, completely convinced that the world she is living in is an absolute lie. To Isabella, the woman sleeping down the hall isn't actually her mother. Instead, her mother has been replaced by an ancient evil astral entity named Cecilia. And also, according to the booming, disembodied voices echoing inside Isabella's head, time has completely run out. The voices are telling her that Cecilia is actively plotting to destroy the universe, and there is only one way to save the planet from total destruction. That is, the entity has to die tonight. Hours later, the peace of that quiet suburban neighborhood is shattered by frantic, blood-curdling screams that slice through the mid-air night. When emergency responders finally arrive, they walk into a scene straight out of a big-budget horror movie. Blood coats the wall, the floor, and the fixtures. A mother lies dead on her bathroom floor. Her body has been completely unrecognizable, and Isabella is gone, vanished into the dark Colorado night without a single trace. This isn't just a story about a horrific, unthinkable crime, but what makes this case truly unforgettable is what eventually turned out into a viral internet phenomenon years later, is what happened when Isabella finally walked into the courtroom.
The 18-year-old smirked at the camera as she stood up and walked to the defense table this afternoon, her arms and legs shackled. After the judge read the complaint against her, she looked over, stared at the camera, and motioned to the area under each of her eyes with her index finger.
And that 5-second video clip would go on the rack of hundreds of millions of views on TikTok and YouTube. Now, to the internet, she became the face of bizarre, glamorous, true crime aesthetic, a magical maniac archetype. But behind the viral courtroom smirk lies a deeply tragic, complex, and deeply unsettling reality that the internet completely missed out. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the real story of Isabella Guzman, the terrifying escalation, the bloody night that changed everything, the absolute failure of the safety nets around her, and the dark truth behind the smile that shocked the whole world. Now, to understand how an ordinary teenager ends up committing one of the most violent acts in Colorado's history, we are going back to the months leading up to August 2013. On the surface, Isabella Guzman's life looked like that of any other teenager, trying to navigate through the messy, turbulent transition into adulthood. But behind the closed doors, her relationship with her 47-year-old mother, Yun Mi Hoi, was deteriorating at an alarming rate. Arguments between the two were constant, loud, and incredibly volatile. Friends and family noticed that Isabella's behavior was shifting, becoming increasingly erratic, hostile, and unpredictable. But while ordinary teenage rebellion usually involves talking back, breaking curfews, or even slamming doors, Isabella's hostility was taking on a much darker and stranger tone. Isabella, who had recently made a heavy decision to leave the Jehovah's Witness religion, a faith deeply intertwined with her family's life and identity. According to Isabella, after she walked away from the religion at the age of 14, the emotional and psychological environment at home became unbearable for her. She felt isolated, judged, and fundamentally disconnected from her support system, whether driven by religious friction or deep-seated family trauma or the first subtle creeping signs of a severe psychiatric disorder. Isabella was slipping away from reality. Now, by the summer of 2013, Isabella was no longer just angry, she was completely detached. She began refusing to call her mother by her real name, instead calling her Cecilia or the imposter. Even so, she spoke openly about astral projections, cosmic entities, and ancient curses. She also told her mother directly that she had been cursed for all of eternity because she was actively trying to destroy an astral being and its caretaker. Now to Yunmi, it looked like a teenager weaponizing bizarre, cruel insults to her. She had no idea that her daughter wasn't trying to be mean, but she was actively losing her grip on the physical world. The tension finally boiled over on August 27, 2013, following a massive screaming argument inside their Aurora home. Isabella stared coldly at her mother, left a written note on the kitchen counter. The note contained 4 words that sent a shiver down Yunmi's spine. "You will pay." Now terrified by the raw venom in her daughter's eyes and the cryptic threat, Yunmi did what any desperate parent would do. She called up the police. Officers arrived at her home, sat down with Isabella and tried to de-escalate the situation. They warned the 18-year-old that her behavior was crossing legal boundaries, and if she continued to threaten her mother, she could face real criminal consequences. For a brief moment, Isabella seemed to calm down. The officers left, believing that they had settled a tense but standard family dispute. But little did they know, you cannot reason with a psychotic delusion. While the police thought that they were dealing with a rebellious teenager, in reality they were looking into the eyes of someone whose mind was being flooded by auditory and visual hallucinations, whispering that time was running out. Desperate to protect her daughter and to find a way to defuse the bomb ticking inside her home, Yunmi reached out to Isabella's biological father, Robert Guzman. Though the couple was divorced, they both cared deeply for Isabella and knew she needed an immediate intervention. In the afternoon of August 28, Robert came over to the house on East Yale Avenue. He sat down on the backyard with Isabella, hoping that a heart-to-heart talk with her father would finally break through whatever wall she had built around herself. For hours, Robert talked to his daughter about the strains of growing up and about how much her mother loved her. But Isabella sat there mostly silent. Her eyes were completely vacant, staring through him. She also told her father that she would try to fix things, that she would try to be better. After which, Robert left the house that evening, feeling a profound sense of relief, genuinely believing that his words had made an impact in her. He thought that the danger had passed and the family could finally breathe. But the horror had only started, because later that evening, Isabella's boyfriend reported a terrifying incident that completely contradicted her calm demeanor with her father. Out of the absolute nowhere, Isabella had attacked him with a golf club. It was a violent and completely unprovoked and entirely out of character. When he tried to calm her down, Isabella began speaking frantically about a mysterious entity named Sam, claiming that Sam hated him and wanted him gone. The tragic reality of this case is that the safety net was unraveling at every corner. The police had been called, her father had intervened, and her boyfriend had also witnessed her physical violence firsthand. Everyone knew something was profoundly wrong, but no one had the missing piece of the puzzle. They didn't realize that Isabella wasn't having a behavioral crisis. She was experiencing a full-force onset of paranoid schizophrenia. Now, in the medical world, this period is known as the prodromal phase of schizophrenia, where a person's perception of reality fractures, often resulting in sudden, unpredictable outbursts of violence driven by absolute terror. To Isabella, the world was becoming a hostile, alien landscape filled with monsters disguised as her loved ones. And she wasn't acting out of malice either. She was acting out of absolute survival panic. And as the sun began to set over Aurora on August 28th, the voices inside her head grew deafening. It was just after 9:30 p.m. Yunmi Hoi steps into the upstairs bathroom to take a shower and get ready for bed. Her husband, Isabella's stepfather, Ryan Hoi, is downstairs enjoying a quiet evening, believing the family drama had finally settled down for the night. Now suddenly, Ryan hears a loud thud from upstairs. Then a muffled cry. Within seconds, the sound transformed into agonizing, high-pitched screams echoing down the stairwell. At this point, Ryan jumps off his couch and bolts upstairs. His heart was pounding violently in his chest. He runs down the hallway to the bathroom door, but when he twists the handle, it's locked from the inside. The sound of a violent, frantic struggle are unmistakable. Ryan pounds on the heavy wooden door, screaming his wife's name, demanding to know what's happening. Through the door, he hears Yunmi's choked, panicked voice cry out,
Isabella, stop, please, stop.
After hearing this, Ryan throws his entire body weight against the locked door, trying to splinter the frame, desperately trying to get inside. But before he can break it down, he looks down at the floor. A thick, dark, crimson pool of blood is beginning to seep out of the bathroom, spreading quickly across the hallway carpet. Then, total silence falls over the house. Ryan realizes that he cannot get through the door, so he frantically runs downstairs and grabs his phone to dial 911. As he screams his address to the emergency dispatcher, he hears the bathroom door upstairs click open. Slow, deliberate footsteps walk down the stairs. At this point, Ryan completely freezes. Isabella descends from the staircase, completely calm. Her expressions are completely blank. She is holding a long, heavy kitchen knife. Her face, hair, and her clothes, along with her hands, are completely drenched in her mother's blood. She doesn't say a word to her stepfather. She doesn't scream. She doesn't even cry. And she does not try to attack him. She simply walks right past him, opens the front door, and steps out into the dark suburban night, disappearing into the shadows before the first police sirens can be heard in the distance. Now when Ryan runs back upstairs and finally pushes the bathroom door, he is met with a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Yunmi is slumped against the base of the bathtub. The attack was relentless, unimaginably brutal. Medical examiners would later reveal that Yunmi had been struck in the head with a baseball bat and stabbed a staggering 79 times. 31 times in the face and neck alone, and 48 times across her torso. It wasn't just a murder, it was an absolute frenzy born of psychotic terror. Now the hunt for Isabella Guzman didn't last long.
Isabella Guzman, 18 years old, this is the woman police are looking for. They were searching for her everywhere last night. They even used the help of the Denver police chopper last night. They did a reverse 911 to homes within a 1.5 mile radius, searching for this woman. Here's what we know so far.
The very next afternoon, police spotted her inside a nearby parking garage. When the officers swooped in to arrest her, she didn't fight back. She surrendered quietly and completely detached from the gravity of what she had done, still trapped within the walls of her own mind. But the real shockwave hit the public during the formal court appearance in 2014. As the news camera set up in the county courtroom, the public expected to see a monster, or at least a deeply broken teenager, trembling in a trial jumpsuit, overwhelmed by the weight of her crimes. Instead, they got the smirk. Because when Isabella looked up and noticed that the lens was pointing at her, her face didn't tighten with anxiety. Instead, she locked eyes with the camera and began putting on a mini performance. She actually made hyper-expressive grimaces, wrinkled her nose playfully, tapped her chin as if in deep thought, and then smiled directly at the audience at home. Now years later, around 2020, the internet had discovered this footage. On TikTok, users who knew absolutely nothing about the case took that 5-second clip, threw a trendy slow motion filter over it, and added a heavy bass soundtrack, and turned Isabella Guzman into an overnight sensation. Millions of people began commenting of how cute she was, making jokes that she was too pretty to be guilty, and romanticizing her as a misunderstood rebellious icon. Now it was a profound and deeply unsettling and disturbing display of how social media can completely strip the humanity out of true crime. The internet had created an illusion of a cold, calculated, stylish villain. But inside that courtroom, the reality was entirely different. The prosecution and the defense didn't see a quirky, unbothered teenager. They saw a young woman completely lost in a severe, unmedicated psychotic break. Forensic psychiatrists who evaluated Isabella at the Colorado State Mental Hospital testified that she was suffering from profound paranoid schizophrenia. The medical evaluations revealed a terrifying truth. When Isabella was smiling at the camera, she didn't think that she was on trial for killing her mother. She genuinely believed that her mother was still alive and well. In her mind, she had successfully destroyed an evil astral being named Cecilia, thereby saving the entire world from an apocalyptic catastrophe. The smile wasn't a sign of malicious satisfaction or even arrogance. It was the tragic, vacant expression of someone whose mind was completely severed from reality. In a rare move for a case this violent, the prosecution didn't fight for a prison sentence. The attorney looked at the overwhelming psychiatric evidence and admitted that the state could not convict her of first-degree murder, because in this case, this woman did not know right from wrong. The judge formally accepted a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Isabella wasn't sent to a maximum security prison. She was committed indefinitely to a Colorado Mental Health Institute, a psychiatric facility designed for high-risk patients. 7 years later, in late 2020, right after the exact same time, her face was blowing up on TikTok. The real Isabella Guzman re-emerged. She granted a virtual interview to a local CBS news station from inside the mental health facility. But the person on screen looked nothing like the viral courtroom clip. With her hair tied back, wearing glasses, and speaking with a quiet, clear, and deeply remorseful voice, Isabella revealed what happened when the antipsychotic medication finally clears away the delusions.
I was not myself when I did that, and I have since been restored to full health.
Isabella spoke candidly about the horror of waking up from a psychotic state and realizing that the monster you thought you were fighting was actually your own mother. She later expressed deep remorse, stating that if she could take that night back, she would do it in a heartbeat. She also used the interview to allege that she had faced years of emotional abuse at home before the crime even began, and also reported experiencing sexual assault by a staff member during her time at the hospital, highlighting the complex layers of her ongoing confinement. In 2001, a judge ruled that Isabella, having shown significant progress and stability on her medication regimen, would be allowed to leave the state hospital grounds for specific supervised activities like group therapy, provided that she wears a live GPS tracking device. Now, the story of Isabella Guzman is a haunting reminder of the dangers of looking at true crime through the lens of a social media algorithm. To the internet, she was a 5-second meme, a glamorous aesthetic, and a dark joke. But in reality, she is a young woman who has to spend every single day of the rest of her life waking up to the agonizing knowledge of what she did during a complete psychological eclipse. It is a tragedy of a life lost, a family permanently shattered, and a stark reminder that behind every trial, behind every viral smirk, there is a very real, very dark human cause. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Now, such cases that we cover is a reminder that behind every headline was a real person, a real family, and a story that should never be forgotten. Thank you so much for watching and staying with me until the very end of this video. Subscribe for more true crime stories, and I'll see you guys on the next case. Bye for now.